harmonizing a major scale and what that means. Because I know sometimes we look around and we're like, people give us numbers like 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 2, 5, 1. We talk about that all the time in jazz. What is a 2, 5, 1? Where does it come from? This is going to be really basic, because if we really get deep into jazz, what's going to happen is we're going to talk about how that key changes throughout the progression. If we think about like all the things you're going to have multiple key changes, and that those cycles, those 2, 5, 1s, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1s, are going to occur in different places, and they're going to have turnarounds. Those are generally all turnarounds, is what we mean by that. If we're playing pop tunes and we have a 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, which is 90% 1, 5, 6, 4, we've heard that a million times, or which is a standard turnaround, right? That's we've heard that. You know, it's also, you know, it's a million other tunes. We've heard a million other tunes that use that progression. But what does 1, 5, 6, 4 actually mean? What does that actually mean? Well, it's a relationship to the 1 chord. Well, what is the 1 chord? In this case, the 1 chord, what we're looking at is basically G major, right? And we're saying, well, G major, if I'm going to set up a G major scale, I'm going to G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. We have 1 sharp in that scale, right? So we have to know our keys. We have to know that, you know, G major has 1 sharp, C has no sharps, D has 2 sharps, F has 1 flat, E flat has 2 flats, and so on. We need to know our cycle, our cycle of fourths and our cycle of fifths to really have this make sense. Once you have that underhand, it's gonna be a little bit more concise when you start to put these things together. Now, what we want to do is we want to work through this and think, okay, well, I have my major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and this is in the key of G. Now, when I say, you know, harmonizing the major scale, think of it like if you've learned your modes at all: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. I know it sounds like Greek, because it is. Those are Greek words. And those all have a relationship to what the parent chord is, or the parent scale. The parent scale in this case is G major, or in the Greek mode system, it's going to be Ionian. We can look at those in the same way that we look at harmonizing a scale, right? So if I play that G major scale again, I'm going to play it slowly: G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. What I want to do is I want to build a chord or a scale of every single note inside that parent scale, and I can. And that's where we get these modal systems from. So if I said G was Ionian, A is Dorian, and that is actually our 2 chord. So 1 being G, 2 being A. B would be 3, which would be Ionian, so it'd be Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian would be the 3rd mode, right? So 3, when we think of the 3 chord, right? So there's our Phrygian, and then we have Lydian. Actually, it's gonna be, that's our 4 chord. So our color tone in that would be that tritone, right? Our 5th chord would be our Mixolydian, and we know it as dominant. And then A, which would, or E, why am I saying A? I'm thinking a different key, thinking C. E would be our 6th mode, which is also the relative minor of G major. And then F sharp Locrian. And there's a couple different Locrians. We could do Locrian natural 2. I know that goes a little bit deeper. You might want to look that up. But Locrian natural 2, or in this case, we're just doing Locrian, which is a flat 2, flat 5. And then we're back to G Ionian, or G major. So when we look at how that chord structure works, and we start putting those things together, we end up with a group of chords. If I work up that and I think, okay, for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this on my 5 string. I have a high C on here, which allows me to chord right here. So there's my G major, that's my 1 chord. A minor is my 2 chord. B D is my 3 chord, that's my Phrygian, that's minor. C is going to be my major. And then I'm going to go into D Dorian, which is my dominant. From D Dorian, I go to E Aeolian, which is my 6th chord. And then I get up to F sharp. I'm going to have F sharp diminished, which is going to be my 7th chord. And then I'm finally back to G major. So when we think about that, we break that down, we say, okay, well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. We're actually, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 octave. Those you place into different orders, and you get different songs. So in case of G, if I call G1, I could play my G major scale there, right? I have my 5, which would be my Mixolydian or my dominant, and then I'm going to 6, which would be E minor, and then I'm going to 4, which would be my Lydian, back to 1. So that's your 1, 5, 6, 4, and that is a common pop rock progression that we use a lot, and it's good to know that that's how that works. So when we start to look through it, now you can borrow chords. You can borrow chords. So, for instance, if we look at like a song like, say, Creep from Radiohead, we have that 1, and then it goes to a B7. And we know that that's a 3 chord, so that should not be a B7. That's a borrowed harmony to C major, which is the 4 chord in there, and then it goes to C minor. So that gives us that's again borrowed harmony. So we're borrowing chords from other scale systems, like melodic minor or harmonic minor. And we can supplement them into our progression. We see this a lot in jazz. We see this a lot in Radiohead. We see this a lot in a lot more advanced rock bands. You're not going to hear this in a lot of pop tunes. You're not going to find it very often. I mean, once in a while it'll creep in, ha ha ha. But you're going to find this way more often in jazz and maybe more advanced rock tunes or fusion-y type stuff. That'll make more sense. But let's go through that again. Let's go through that one more time. I know that I'm blazing through this, and you're probably like, what the hell am I talking about? It's gibberish. But it makes sense. The idea, essentially, if we break it down, and we say, if I play my G major scale, starting on a different note and ending on that octave of that note each time, I end up with a different scale. Within that scale still has a chord. There's a chord inside the scale. Think of the scale as the animal. The chord is the skeletal system of the animal. Inside my G major, I have my root, my 3rd, my 5th, and my 7th. That's my 7th chord, right? But I still have my outlining scale inside there. My next chord is going to be that A Dorian, which is A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. And that is not just that's not a natural minor. That is actually Dorian. It's Dorian because it has that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 raised 6. That raised 6 tells me it's the 2 chord of G, and that's an F sharp, which is a guiding tone of G. It's a part of the harmony. It makes G major, G major. So we're representing it inside there. So that's that color tone. As we move through all of our modes, we're going to notice that each one of those modes is going to have that relationship. It's going to have an F sharp inside it. If you did this in the key of C, none of them would have any sharps or flats because C doesn't have any sharps or flats. So it makes more sense, if you think about it, to actually have a key center kind of worked out for each of these. Like I said before, though, as you build out, you're going to find that more and more jazz, or if you get into where you have key changes, you're going to find those relationships happen over and over again. And the number system, because we think of these in Roman numerals, the same way that the iPhone 10 is the 10 and not the X. It's a Roman numeral for 10. The same way we use those Roman numerals for products, we also use those Roman numerals for chord systems. 1 being Roman numeral 1, 2 being a lower Roman numeral for the 2 little i's, Roman numeral 3 for 3 little i's, and 4 with the V with the I behind it, or in front of it to make it a 4. V with the I behind it is a 6. 5 is just the V. So we want to know what that means. Now, there's a Nashville number system too that works a little bit differently. Maybe we'll talk about that at another time. But knowing these numbers means that you're not stuck playing something in one key. And that's really important because a lot of us get stuck playing in one key. And if you've ever worked with a female vocalist, or any vocalist who doesn't play in a standard key, we don't do any songs in the normal keys. And that's okay. It's actually really good to be able to find out what works and what doesn't work. Because sometimes some of these structures sound better in their original key, and you find out, hey, that song just doesn't work in E when it was written in D. Or vice versa, you're like, oh, well, it actually has a different tonality by changing the key. And I'm not even reharmonizing. I'm not even changing it to a minor key. I'm just talking about changing the key from one key to another key. So hence being C to the key of G. And you'll find that happens occasionally. And it's easier if you know how to do that, if you know how the chord structure works. If you say, well, I know that in G, if I go 1, 5, 6, 4, is that. If I say, well, okay, well, I'm going to do this in the key of B. 1, 5, 6, 4. It's like very much meantime there, right? I can change the key for that. And knowing those numbers, I can play those in different ways, too. Because I said this is 1, right? I went to 5 here. I could go 5 here. So 1, 5, 6, 4, which is like So Lonely. Or 1... a bunch of other tunes that use those progressions. It's kind of a good idea for us just in general to know what we're working with. It just makes sense. Alright guys, I know this was kind of abrupt and I was just trying to put something together because it's been a little while since I put something out. You want to take your time with this stuff, and it doesn't matter. This does not have to be a jazz thing. This is just a music thing. So you really want to think about that, because when you apply this, and that's kind of why, like I always say, like, you can't really study rock. You can study rock, of course you can. That's a bullshit statement. I take that back. You can study rock, but the pedagogy is really classical and jazz, and you're more in depth into what you're getting versus, studying pop music is kind of a reduction of those things, kind of the same way that rock was a reduction of jazz. And then eventually built back up, but and then built back down. But we'll see what's happening. I mean, the better that you know this stuff, get away from reading tabs. Tabs is an okay tool. It's an okay way to work through things. However, you don't want to basically focus on tabs, because tabs is not going to get you anywhere. Think about the chordal system. Learn to read music. Definitely learn to read music. It's going to help you to write out your ideas and thoughts. I guess this is kind of turning into a catharsis. So, anyway, I guess, just keep playing, work through those ideas. If you have any questions, please email me or put a link, put a comment down below. Subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I know I never really say that because I don't really ask for it, and I don't normally it doesn't really matter to me. I just put it out there. It's not like anybody's making money off of YouTube, right? So you might as well just have fun with it. So, if you want to subscribe, that's cool. If not, don't worry about it. So, alright guys, I will see you soon. Be well. Peace, love, and low notes. Keep playing.